Sometimes you don't even know when it all began. You only know you started to fade little by little. You don't smile the same way. You no longer get excited about plans. You don't feel pride in your achievements. You're alive, but not truly living. You breathe, but you don't feel the air. And a question begins to drill into you from the depths. At what point did I lose my way? Maybe you had it all, a steady job, a family, degrees, routines, goals, but suddenly that everything has no flavor. There's no emotion, no meaning, just a subtle, constant emptiness that follows you even in a crowded room. It's as if you're trapped in a life you didn't choose, or maybe you did choose it, but it no longer represents you. As if your soul was stuck at a red light, waiting for a signal that never comes. That is an existential crisis, and if you're here, it's because you know it, because you didn't come seeking a quick fix. You came because you're tired of pretending you're fine when inside you're falling apart. And let me tell you something important. You are not alone. This quiet emptiness is not a flaw. It's not a sign of weakness or proof that you did everything wrong. It is, rather, a deep call from your being, asking you to reconnect, asking you for truth, asking you to stop so you can find yourself again. We live in an era where losing our way is common. We fill ourselves with imposed goals, others' expectations, social masks. We are taught to run, to produce, to please, but we are not taught to listen to ourselves, to ask what we truly want, to pause and admit, I don't know where I'm going. Stoicism, far from being a cold or distant philosophy, is a powerful compass for these moments. It doesn't offer magical recipes or empty promises. It offers clarity, inner strength, and above all, direction. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, all of them faced moments of doubt, loss, and crisis, and they left us clues, teachings, reflections that can help you find your center again, to find a new path, one that this time truly feels like yours. Because getting lost is not always a mistake. Sometimes it's the only way to truly find yourself. In this session, we're going to walk together through this uncertain yet full of potential terrain. Every Stoic lesson you'll hear is a lantern in the midst of your darkness. Not to tell you what to do, but to remind you that you can build your own path from silence, from calm, from the most brutal honesty with yourself. This is not just another session, it's a pause, an intimate conversation with yourself. So if lately you felt like your life is unraveling inside, like you no longer know who you are or what's the point of going on as you are, stay, because this Stoic session is for you, and it may be the beginning of your return. Before we begin, I invite you to declare your commitment by writing in the comments, "From today on, I won't abandon myself." That phrase will be your anchor when you feel lost, a reminder that you're here to reconnect with yourself, not to live according to others' expectations. This is your moment to return to yourself, to honor your path, and to remember that the most important compass isn't outside. It's within you. Without further delay, let us begin. First Stoic lesson. You lose your way to find yourself again. There are moments in life when you look in the mirror and don't know who you are anymore. It's not that you don't recognize your face, it's that behind that reflection, you no longer see a direction. You don't know if what you're doing makes sense. You don't know if what you're chasing is truly yours, or just a goal inherited from other people's expectations. And the most disconcerting thing is that, from the outside, everything seems normal. You keep going to work, you keep performing, you keep posting smiling pictures, but inside, something is broken. A kind of existential fog surrounds you. You don't know how you got here. You just know something was lost along the way. Maybe your passion, maybe your faith, maybe yourself. That is a crisis of direction. And though it hurts, it's also an opportunity. Because sometimes it's necessary to lose yourself in order to truly find yourself. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, once wrote, "No one loses their way entirely unless they've stopped looking within." And that's the key. It's not about finding answers outside, but daring to look inside, even if what you see at first is uncomfortable. Many people run when they feel they've lost direction. They change cities, change partners, change jobs, change lifestyles. They search for an external solution to a pain that lives within. But the Stoics knew that running doesn't heal, it only delays. Epictetus said it clearly, no person is free unless they are master of themselves. And to master yourself, you first have to know who you are, what you value, what you love, what you're no longer willing to compromise. Losing your way isn't a curse, it's a signal, a sign that your life needs a deep update, like a plant that's outgrown its pot. If you don't find a bigger container, you die inside. This feeling of emptiness, loss, and disconnection doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're ready to stop pretending. It means you're ready to ask yourself, maybe for the first time, what kind of life do I really want to build? What choices are pulling me away from myself? What have I been tolerating out of fear of change? The Stoics never demanded that you have all the answers, but they did demand courage. Courage to face the truth head on. And here's the truth. If you feel like you've lost your way, it's because your soul can no longer bear to keep living on autopilot. It no longer accepts drifting through life. It doesn't want to just survive. It wants to truly live. And what does it mean to truly live? It means aligning what you think, what you feel, and what you do. It means stopping the act of pleasing everyone else. It means pausing before you completely run dry. It means understanding that the right path isn't the one everyone follows. It's the one that resonates with your conscience, even if no one else understands it. Inner peace doesn't come when everything is resolved. It comes when you stop lying to yourself, when you dare to stop, to dismantle yourself, to ask with brutal honesty, am I living as who I truly am, or as who the world expects me to be? Stoicism didn't come to fill you with nice quotes. It came to give you the courage to rebuild yourself from truth, from authenticity, from the humility of recognizing that maybe you've lost your way, but you haven't lost your worth, or your dignity, or your ability to begin again. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The soul becomes invincible when it decides not to be dragged by the external." And that's what this first lesson wants to leave etched in your heart. Losing your way might be the best thing that ever happened to you, if you choose to use that break as a starting point. Don't despair trying to find the perfect path. There is no such thing. Start by returning to yourself, by silencing the external noise, by listening to that inner voice you've ignored for too long. It knows. It's always known. The crisis you're living today is the threshold of your true life. Don't be afraid of the emptiness. It's the space where your roots will grow. Don't run from the confusion. It's the fertile soil where your authenticity will blossom. And above all, don't believe you're alone. Every human being who dared to stop living on autopilot had to walk through this desert. But if you keep walking, if you don't give up, if you listen to yourself with brutal honesty, you will emerge, and you'll find something greater than a path. You'll find yourself. Second Stoic lesson: nothing external will give your life meaning. You wake up each morning hoping something out there will confirm you're on the right path, a sign of approval, a promotion, a new purchase, a word of praise. For years you learned to measure your worth through external indicators, numbers, applause, visible results, and at first it worked. Each achievement was a shot of dopamine that made you feel alive, important, needed. But one day, even after reaching your goals, the emptiness remains. It doesn't matter how many people recognize you, how many zeros are in your account, or how many likes your photos collect. Inside, something feels hollow, as if that entire mountain of accomplishments were made of cardboard, and a single breath could bring it all down. Epictetus warned of this nearly 2,000 years ago. Whoever seeks happiness in what they do not control is bound to a wheel that never stops turning. The wheel of external validation spins fast, and the more you rely on it, the dizzier you get, because each triumph becomes fleeting and forces you to chase the next one, an endless cycle of craving and exhaustion. Maybe you tell yourself you have no choice, that the world runs on visible merit. But the problem isn't having external goals. The problem is turning them into substitutes for your life's meaning. Achievement stops being a celebration and becomes a life support machine. If it's taken away, you feel like you can't breathe. Think about the last time you achieved something you deeply desired, a degree, a relationship, a finished project. You remember the initial euphoria, and you also remember how quickly that high turned into a new craving. You wanted something bigger, shinier, more admired, and the chase began again. Marcus Aurelius, in his palace surrounded by wealth and power, would write in the early morning hours to remind himself that none of it guaranteed peace. His meditations are the testimony of a man who, despite ruling the vastest empire of his time, understood that serenity is not decreed from a throne. It is cultivated in the silence within. This lesson invites you to release the illusion that any external achievement, no matter which, will fill your existential void. It won't. Not even the perfect love, the perfect house, or the perfect body. All of it, sooner or later, fades or disappears. And if your sense of meaning depends on something that can vanish, then a crisis is inevitable. What does Stoicism propose? Turn your focus inward. Not to escape the world, but to stop begging from it for permission to feel worthy. Epictetus would often remind his students, "The only thing that belongs to you is your ability to choose rightly. Everything else is on loan." That's right. Your body, your reputation, your money, even your relationships are fragile loans. They can change, they can disappear, they can betray you. The only thing no one can ever take from you is how you choose to respond to what happens. Seeing your achievements through this lens doesn't make them less important. It makes them relative. You stop seeing them as lifelines and begin to see them as temporary bonuses. You're grateful when they come, but you don't fall apart when they fade. And most importantly, you begin to search for a sense of meaning that doesn't shift with others' opinions. Maybe you ask yourself, if nothing external gives meaning to my life, where do I get it from? The answer is simple and demanding. You create it. It's born from your values, from your consistent actions, from your ability to contribute to something greater than your ego. Meaning is built day by day when you do what you believe is right, even if no one applauds you for it. When your fulfillment doesn't rely on external praise, but on the alignment between your conscience and your actions. Seneca put it this way, "The greatest reward of a good deed is having done it." It may sound idealistic, but it's brutally practical. No one can steal the peace that comes from knowing you acted rightly. On the other hand, your diploma, your medal, or someone's praise, they can be lost, broken, or turned against you. Practicing this lesson demands discipline. It means examining your motivations. Do you work to impress or to serve? Do you post to nourish or to feed your insecurity? Do you love to share or to fill a void? Answering these questions honestly is uncomfortable, but liberating. Next time you feel anxious about a goal, pause. Ask yourself, if no one knew I achieved this, would it still matter to me? If the answer is no, you may be chasing a mirage. Shift your focus. Pursue goals that make you a better human being, not just a more admired persona. Building meaning from within doesn't isolate you from the world. It strengthens you to live in it without losing yourself. It lets you enjoy recognition when it comes, but it also gives you resilience when it never does. And above all, it silences that feeling of emptiness that screams when everything external collapses. Because when meaning is born from within, you might lose your external path, but you don't lose yourself. And in the end, that's the only path that truly matters. Feeling lost is not the end. It's the call to return to yourself. If today you decide to stop walking without purpose and begin to reconnect with your inner direction, subscribe. This is a space for those seeking clarity in the midst of emptiness, direction in the midst of chaos, and a philosophical refuge to rebuild from within. Don't keep living on autopilot. Reclaim your path, your peace, and your essence. Let's continue. Third Stoic lesson: crisis forces you to grow. No one wants to fall into an existential crisis. No one wakes up in the morning saying, "Today I want to lose all meaning, doubt who I am, question my decisions, and feel like everything lacks direction." And yet it comes, like a silent blow, like a question that lingers. Is this all there is? Sometimes the crisis appears in the middle of routine. Everything seems to be in order, but inside you, something feels deeply broken. Other times it arrives after a loss, the death of a loved one, a breakup, a professional failure. One way or another, it leaves you suspended in a kind of emotional limbo where what once moved you is no longer enough, and what's to come is unclear. Modern society sells you the illusion that happiness lies in staying constantly stable, motivated, and productive. That feeling lost is a mistake. But the Stoics saw something entirely different in crisis, a necessary opportunity for growth. Not an interruption on your path, but part of the path. Not a curse, but a teacher in disguise. Seneca expressed it with both rawness and beauty. No tree grows strong without being battered by the wind. Only roots that have been tested sink deep into the earth. In other words, without crisis, there is no depth. Without uncomfortable questions, there is no real transformation. Look back. Think about the moments of greatest personal growth in your life. Did they truly come from comfort? Most likely, they arose from a breakup, a resignation, an open wound. From something that shook you so deeply, your only option was to look within and rebuild from scratch. That is what an existential crisis does. It removes your comfortable ground so you can find your roots. It strips you of superficial certainties so you can search for meaning in what's profound. And yes, it's painful, but it's also sacred, because, as Epictetus said, no noble soul is forged in lukewarmness. It needs fire. And fire burns. It scorches your masks. It forces you to face truths you've avoided for years. It leaves you raw, but it also illuminates. It lights up your fears, your contradictions, your voids. And in that harsh light, a true awakening begins. The key lies in how you respond to that crisis. You can numb yourself with distractions, shopping, social media, work. Or you can face it like a Stoic, with brutal honesty, with steady eyes, with the will not just to survive, but to be transformed. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." That sentence is not just a nice metaphor, it's a vital guide. It means you don't need to wait for the storm to pass to start walking again. The storm is the path. And if you learn to walk in it, your inner strength multiplies. Think about muscles. If you don't challenge them, they don't grow. The same goes for your character, your wisdom, your inner peace. Every question that shakes you today, every doubt that paralyzes you, every night where nothing makes sense, are emotional weights. And if instead of giving up you face them with awareness, you'll be building the most profound and authentic version of yourself. And what if you don't know where to start? That's okay. The Stoics weren't trying to have all the answers. They sought the courage to ask the right questions. Who am I without my titles? What is my worth beyond what I produce? What decisions have I made out of fear rather than truth? What part of me deserves to be born now that everything old has collapsed? The answers won't come immediately. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, even years. But every small step toward truth is a victory. Every moment of silence with yourself, every honest tear, every difficult conversation is a seed of wisdom. And one day, without even realizing it, you'll see that the crisis wasn't the end. It was the beginning, the threshold, the portal to a fuller, more conscious, more you kind of life. Stoicism doesn't promise to remove the pain of crisis. It teaches you to walk through it with dignity. It shows you that losing your way is part of the journey, because only when you get lost can you truly find yourself again. Not as you were before, not as someone following someone else's map, but as someone walking with your inner compass lit. So if you're in the midst of the void, if you feel like your life no longer makes sense, don't run, stay. Look within. Be grateful even for this pain, because it's the sign that you're waking up, and every soul that awakens becomes a beacon for others. Never forget, crisis doesn't destroy those who face it with courage. Crisis purifies, crisis reveals, crisis transforms. Fourth Stoic lesson: redefining your life takes courage. There comes a moment in the midst of every existential crisis when you realize you can no longer keep pretending. Pretending you're fine, pretending everything makes sense, pretending the life you're living is enough. That moment, though brutal, is also profoundly honest, and that's when true change begins. But change isn't just about improving. True change, redesigning your life from the rubble, requires fierce courage, because it means looking at everything you've built and daring to ask whether you built it from conviction or from fear, from authenticity or to meet expectations, from love or from a need for approval. And when you discover that many of your choices were shaped by external forces, social pressure, family expectations, routine, something inside you breaks. But something is also freed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The life of each person is shaped by what their soul approves or rejects." So what if your soul no longer approves of that empty routine, that lukewarm relationship, that job that suffocates you, that role you play just to avoid disappointing others? Then the turning point comes to redefine everything. But it's not easy, because redefining your life means letting many things die, letting die versions of yourself that no longer fit, letting die dreams that no longer resonate, letting die certainties that once gave you identity but now rob you of peace. And this is where Stoic courage enters, not the dramatic kind that screams and leaps into the void, but the serene kind, the one that breathes deeply, the one that makes hard decisions with calm, the one that faces fear with a clear gaze. The Stoics understood that the greatest enemy of growth isn't failure, it's attachment. Attachment to who you were, to who you think you should be, to what others expect of you. That's why redefining your life takes courage. Courage to disappoint others, courage to disappoint yourself, courage to choose a different path with no guarantee of success, only the certainty that you can't keep going like this. Seneca said it plainly. Life is like a play. It's not about how long it lasts, but how well it is performed. And if the act you're in has lost its soul, it's time to change the script. But you don't have to do it all at once. Start by recognizing what no longer resonates with you. What part of your daily routine drains you? What habits are you maintaining just out of inertia? What decisions are you postponing because of fear of what others will think? Then dare to let go. Letting go isn't always abandoning. Sometimes it's transforming. Sometimes it's rebuilding from a more honest place. Sometimes it's having a difficult conversation, or writing a letter you'll never send, or allowing yourself to cry without feeling like it makes you weak. Redefining your life also means opening yourself to new questions. What makes me feel truly alive? What values do I want to guide my path? What does a life look like that is aligned with who I am today, not who I used to be? Epictetus said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." And you cannot be master of yourself if you're trapped in an outdated mold. The process of existential redesign begins when you recognize that you're not a fixed character, but a being in constant evolution. Yes, there will be dark days. Days when you'll wish you could go back. Days when redefining your life feels like going against the whole world. But every step toward your truth, no matter how uncertain, is worth more than 1,000 steps toward a borrowed life. And that's the power of Stoicism, not in making you invulnerable, but in teaching you how to endure with dignity, to make decisions aligned with your principles, even when they hurt, to understand that there is no greater peace than living according to your deepest nature. Redefining your life isn't a luxury for the brave. It's a vital necessity when everything has lost meaning. It's the most radical act of self-love you can perform. It's the moment you stop merely surviving and start truly living. Don't demand all the answers from yourself. Just start by no longer lying to yourself, by no longer following paths that are no longer yours, by daring to write a new story where you are the author, not just a passive reader. Life changes when you stop fearing uncertainty and begin to see it as fertile ground for your freedom. Fifth Stoic lesson: don't run from doubt, explore it. There comes a point in every existential crisis when the mind fills with unanswered questions. Who am I, really? What's the meaning of all this? Am I living the life I truly want, or just the one I fell into by inertia? These questions don't arrive gently. They break in, they strike. Sometimes they hurt, but they also open doors you never imagined. And yet, the first thing we usually do is run. We run from our doubts with distractions, tight routines, social media, shallow entertainment. We fill our lives with noise so we don't have to hear that inner voice screaming to be heard. But the Stoics were not ones to run. Epictetus made it clear: it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And those judgments, more often than not, are not the result of deep reflection, but of our refusal to face what we truly feel. That's why, when doubt arises, the path is not escape, but depth. Exploring your doubt is like entering a dense, dark forest. You can't see clearly. Every step feels uncertain, but if you stop, if you observe, if you stay still in that uncomfortable silence, you begin to understand. Because doubt is fertile ground for truth. What hurts isn't doubt itself, but our resistance to accepting it. We want quick answers. We want someone to tell us what to do. We want to believe there's a safe, clear path. When in truth, life is a series of uncertain steps walked with the greatest dignity possible. Seneca explained it brilliantly. He who does not know what he wants cannot find what he seeks. And to know what you want, you must first give yourself permission to question what you thought you wanted. So instead of seeing doubt as an enemy, see it as a guide. Doubt shows you that you've grown, that what once satisfied you no longer does, that what once made sense now creates noise. That's not weakness, that's evolution. When someone disappoints you, when a relationship ends, when a project you poured yourself into fails, when you wake up one morning and don't know why you're doing what you're doing, that's when doubt becomes unbearable. But that's also when your rebirth begins. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the things we think determine the quality of our soul. So, what thoughts are you avoiding? What truths have you been postponing? Be silent. Shut out the noise. Write down your doubts. Look them in the eye. Don't try to solve them all today. Just observe them. Ask yourself, what is this discomfort trying to tell me? What part of me no longer fits the life I'm living? Sometimes the answer will come as intuition, other times as pain, and often as new questions that go even deeper. That's okay. You don't need to rush to a solution. You just need to commit to the search. The Stoics knew that only a life examined is worth living. It's not about having certainties. It's about living with honesty, allowing doubt to wash away false securities and bring you closer, little by little, to your most authentic essence. And in truth, only those who dare to question their direction feel lost. Only those who can no longer lie to themselves feel disoriented. And that, while uncomfortable, is the beginning of a freer life. So don't silence your doubts. Don't cover them with empty motivational slogans. Don't dissolve them with external promises. Listen to them, feel them, write to them. Speak with them as you would with an old teacher who came to awaken you. Because often what hurts today will be the source of your wisdom tomorrow. Now then, if you choose to live from doubt, from exploration, from a commitment to a life that's no longer automatic. Then you're taking a brave step. Not many dare to. Most prefer to settle, but you made it this far. You've read, you've felt, you're awakening. Allow yourself to be lost, but never allow yourself to stop exploring. The peace you seek is not at the end of the road. It's in every step you take with integrity. And if you're here, it's because you're ready to walk with honesty. Sixth Stoic lesson: accepting your reality is the first step. Sometimes you don't need an earthquake to feel like your world is falling apart. All it takes is a silent morning when you wake up and don't know why. A cup of coffee that no longer tastes like anything. A conversation that feels distant. Just another day that goes by without anything moving inside you. It's in that seemingly harmless moment that one of the soul's deepest battles begins, when you realize you no longer know where you're headed or why you're going there. It's a feeling many have known, yet few dare to name. It's the hollow of an existential crisis. And if you're here, you probably know what I'm talking about. You've felt that disconnection that no trip, no achievement, no number of likes can fix. That silent echo that reminds you you're still functioning, but you're no longer living. In that kind of emptiness, one of the most common mistakes is resisting reality. This shouldn't be happening to me. I have no reason to feel like this. I'm being ungrateful. Everything's fine. But no, everything's not fine. And pretending it is only pulls you deeper into the void. This is where the Stoic teaching enters. Seneca said that suffering doesn't come from what happens, but from our resistance to it. What harms you isn't feeling lost, but refusing to allow yourself to feel that way, denying it, covering it with distractions, sweeping it under the rug of duty. Accepting your crisis is not a defeat. It is the beginning of your transformation. It's like when a doctor can't begin healing you until you first admit you're sick. It's not about self-pity or wallowing in your pain. It's about observing yourself with radical honesty and saying, yes, I'm lost, and it's okay not to have the answers for now. Because you can't find yourself again until you admit that you've been lost. Stoicism invites us to look at life without masks, to see things as they are, not as they should be, and that includes ourselves. Accepting yourself in the midst of chaos doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. It makes you human. And do you know what happens when you accept? You stop wasting energy on denial. Your mind is no longer trapped in guilt or shame. And then space appears, a fertile silence, a new clarity. From there you can begin to build. Maybe you don't yet know what you want, but you know you don't want to stay the way you are. Maybe you don't have all the answers, but you've dared to ask the right question. What's happening inside me? That question, when born from acceptance, is powerful because you're no longer running, no longer pretending. You're standing face to face with yourself, with your doubts, your wounds, your emptiness, and your courage. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of wars, imperial pressures, and worldly chaos, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it. And you have the power to revoke that at any moment. You can choose to see yourself differently. You can choose to stop judging your emptiness as failure. You can choose to redefine this moment as the threshold of a new path." Accepting your existential crisis is giving yourself permission to stop, so that you can redirect. It's like being lost in the forest and finally stopping the frantic running in circles. You sit, you breathe, you observe, you accept that you don't have the map, but you have the will. And from there, a new direction can emerge. This lesson is for you if you've ever thought that acceptance equals surrender. Because it doesn't. Acceptance is not giving up. It's stopping the war against yourself. It's the first step to channeling your energy into movement guided by awareness, not desperation. It's the deepest act of self-compassion and clarity you can offer yourself. The calm you're searching for won't arrive when everything makes sense. It will arrive when you accept that today. Maybe nothing does, but you're still here. you're still going. You're still willing to learn, to grow, to rebuild. And that, dear listener, is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're already healing. And healing always begins with a single truth. This is who I am. This is what I feel. And from here, I rise. If you've made it this far, it means you're ready to reclaim the path you once thought was lost. Follow us and comment, "I'm ready to rediscover myself," to affirm your commitment to a life of clarity and direction. This is just the beginning of a more conscious, grounded, and aligned existence. By the time we reach the 9th lesson, you'll discover a truth that may change the way you see your crisis. Don't miss it. It might be exactly what you needed. Let's keep going. 7th Stoic lesson, meaning is created, not found. There's a subtle trap many of us fall into when we feel we've lost our way, the obsession with finding the right purpose. We tell ourselves, if only I knew my purpose, everything would make sense. Everything would be worth it. And so we begin the frantic search for some external meaning. A brilliant career, an ideal partner, a noble cause, social recognition. Something, anything that will tell us who we are and why we're here. But that search, however legitimate, can become a cage, because deep down we're still outsourcing the meaning of our life to something outside ourselves. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius understood this masterfully. In his Meditations he wrote, "Life has no more meaning than the one you choose to give it. Do not wait for the world to hand it to you." This radically shifts how we understand our existential crisis. Because if purpose is not something to be found, but something to be created, then there's no need to wait, no need to ask for permission, no need to search for some divine sign. You just have to choose. Your purpose is not a prize granted to you at the end of a long road. It's the way you choose to live as you walk. It's what you do with what you already have. Do you feel lost? Good. Maybe it's time to stop searching for the grand answer out there and start formulating your own small answers within. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? What are you unwilling to give up, even when everything gets difficult? What daily act could bring just a little more meaning to your existence? Sometimes we confuse purpose with fame or success, but meaning can lie in the simplest things: caring for someone, learning something new, living in alignment with your values, nurturing your mind, building inner peace. Epictetus, another great Stoic, said, "Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly." That's what it means to create purpose, to take what is, even the emptiness, even the doubt, and transform it into a conscious act. Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of marble. He doesn't ask the marble to already have shape. He creates it, he chisels it, he gives it form. You are that sculptor, your life is the marble. And the most liberating truth is this: you don't need to have it all figured out to start creating. Your existential crisis is the sign that the time has come. Not to wait, but to decide. Decide who you want to be. Decide how you want to live. Decide what you value, even if no one else understands. Yes, there will be grey days. Yes, there will be moments when it all feels meaningless. But if each day you choose to act in a way that aligns with something you have chosen as meaningful, then that day had purpose. Maybe not the grand purpose in capital letters, but a purpose that sustains, that calms, that guides, and that's enough to start walking again. Seneca expressed it with his usual clarity: choose a life that's worth living, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. This is your moment to claim that life, to stop waiting for sudden enlightenment, or for someone else to tell you what to do. Maybe part of your emptiness comes from having lived too long, meeting other people's expectations, parents, partners, society, social media. So many voices that told you which career to pursue, what body to have, what kind of success to chase. But now you're here, at 0 point, at a pause that may hurt, but also might be a door. The door to your authenticity, because when you choose your purpose, when you create meaning from the most honest part of yourself, you stop being a leaf blown by the wind. You become someone who, though they may not have all the answers, has stopped running from the questions, and that is strength, that is life, that is Stoicism in action. So stop asking, what is my purpose? Start asking, what meaning do I choose to give this moment? And then act accordingly, because peace doesn't lie in finding something perfect. Peace lies in living with meaning, even if you don't yet have all the answers. And that is already having direction. 8th Stoic lesson, crisis frees you from others' expectations. There's a kind of silent pain that isn't visible from the outside. It doesn't scream, doesn't overflow, leaves no physical marks, but it eats away at the soul. It's that moment when you wake up and realize you don't know who you are. When everything around you, the life you've built, the achievements you've stacked up, the decisions you've made, doesn't quite feel like it belongs to you, as if you've been following a map you never chose. And that's where a true existential crisis begins, not because of what you lost, but because of what you pretended to have, because of the expectations you unconsciously adopted as your own, because of the weight of everything you tried to be in order to please, to fit in, to be enough. For years we're trained to live outward, to become what others want, to avoid disappointing anyone, and without realizing it, we become experts at obedience, at pleasing, at sacrificing our authenticity in exchange for belonging. But no one teaches us to look inward, to ask ourselves if what we're building truly makes us feel alive. Epictetus warned us firmly, do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do. Then you will be happy. But how can we accept what is happening if we're not even sure that the life we're living reflects who we truly are? The most painful part of losing your way is not the confusion. It's realizing you never had direction to begin with, that you've been walking borrowed paths, wearing clothes that don't fit, playing roles written by someone else. And within that disorientation, within that internal shaking, lies an uncomfortable but priceless gift, the possibility of liberation. Because an existential crisis is your soul's cry for authenticity. It's the call to release the social, familial, or cultural mandates that no longer resonate with who you are. Marcus Aurelius made it clear in his meditations, do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. Give yourself wholly to what fosters your own virtue. In other words, stop living by someone else's expectations. Start living from your truth. But this process is not easy. Letting go of expectations also means letting go of certain ties. It means accepting that some people will not understand your change. Some will judge you. Some will drift away. And that hurts, because we've been conditioned to believe that being liked is more important than being real. But true peace arrives when you choose to disappoint others, rather than betray yourself. When you decide your well-being is no longer negotiable, when you understand that the only way to find your way again is to stop chasing goals that were never yours to begin with. An existential crisis, then, is not a fall. It's a necessary rupture. It's the demolition of all that's false, so something real can emerge. It's the quake that signals a more honest reconstruction. Epictetus said that freedom begins when you stop worrying about what is not in your control. And others' expectations, they're never under your control. You can spend your whole life trying to meet them, but you'll never master them. They'll always shift. They'll always demand more. They'll always place your worth in someone else's hands. So when you feel like you've lost your way, ask yourself one question. Is this life I'm living true to who I really am? If the answer is no, then the crisis is not your enemy. It's your ally. It's the mirror showing you what you can no longer ignore. Don't judge yourself for feeling lost. On the contrary, be grateful for that feeling. Because many people live their lives asleep, filling empty roles without ever asking why. But you are waking up. You're starting to see, and even if it hurts, that's a sign of life. So make space, silence the noise, and start listening to the only voice that truly matters, your own. Maybe at first it won't sound clear, maybe it will be full of fear and doubt, but it will be real, and it's the only beacon that can truly guide you home. Remember, you're not lost, you're being deprogrammed. You're breaking free from a version of yourself that no longer fits, and that, however painful, is growth. The Stoics didn't aim for a perfect life, they sought a life of integrity, a life that made sense from within, not from the lens of external approval. And you can choose that too, today, now, even in the midst of crisis, because there's no compass more reliable than your truth, and if you have the courage to stand by it, even when the world tells you otherwise, then you're not lost. You're being reborn. If this message is helping you, subscribe and become part of a space dedicated to reconnecting with yourself, rebuilding your path, and finding clarity when you need it most. Here, we nurture your mind, strengthen your spirit, and walk together toward a more conscious and authentic life. Ninth Stoic lesson: you don't need a perfect plan, just move forward. How many times have you postponed an important change simply because you didn't know where to start? How many times have you felt paralyzed by not having absolute clarity about which path to take? In the midst of an existential crisis, the mind searches for certainty like someone gasping for air underwater. But what it encounters again and again is confusion. You don't know whether to stay the course or take a complete turn. You don't know if the problem is your job, your relationship, your past decisions, or simply you. And that persistent doubt can freeze you more than the pain itself. We live in a culture obsessed with planning, career plans, financial plans, life plans, as if having everything mapped out perfectly were the definition of success or control. But the Stoics offer us another perspective, one that's more human, more humble, and far more liberating. Seneca wrote, "We do not dare to do many things because they are difficult, but they are difficult because we do not dare." That phrase is a key. It's not the lack of a plan that prevents you from moving forward. It's the lack of courage to take the first step without guarantees. In an existential crisis, your mind will try to convince you that you need a complete solution before taking action. But the truth is, all you need is to move, to take action, to get out of analysis paralysis and reconnect with the present through small conscious decisions. Imagine for a moment that you're lost in the middle of a forest. No map, no idea where the exit is. What do? You can sit and wait for a miracle guide to appear. You can cry, curse your luck, blame the world. Or you can start walking, and with every step, observe, learn, adjust your direction. That is the Stoic spirit. That is the philosophy of those who understand that life isn't controlled with plans, but with courage and action. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." He didn't mean having a clear path from the start, but rather defining an intention, a guiding principle, and then letting that intention shape your decisions one step at a time. If today you feel like you've lost your way, don't search for the perfect answer. Ask yourself only this: what can I do today, however small, that brings me closer to a more authentic life? That is the seed of change. And when you repeat it every day, you begin building a new path. Not from absolute clarity, but from committed action. Because moving forward doesn't mean knowing everything. It means being willing to live through the process. The Stoics didn't wait for ideal conditions. They didn't wait for external certainty. Their strength came from acting with what they had, from where they were, even if the road ahead was uncertain. Marcus Aurelius lived this firsthand. He ruled an empire in times of war, plague, and betrayal. He never had a perfect plan, but each day he acted according to his principles. He wrote in his journals not to map out the future in detail, but to remind himself that his duty was to act with virtue in the present. You can do the same. Maybe you're unsure if that project is right. Maybe you doubt whether that relationship has a future. Maybe your purpose isn't clear. But if you choose to stay frozen waiting for certainty, you'll only feed the emptiness. Instead, if you move forward, even with clumsy, small or slow steps, you're telling yourself, I don't need all the answers to honor my life. And that is already an act of dignity. There's a peace that comes when you stop demanding guarantees from life and simply choose to live, to feel, to make mistakes if necessary, but to keep going, because every step, even the wrong one, teaches you something, and every mistake, if viewed with wisdom, gives you a compass more precise than any plan. You don't need a perfect roadmap. You need trust. Trust that with every honest move, the path will reveal itself. And if one day you realize you took the wrong direction, it's okay. You return, you adjust, you correct, but you do it in motion, not from paralysis. Remember, the perfect plan is an illusion, an elegant excuse that hides fear, and fear, when disguised as caution, can steal years of your life. That's why today, choose to move forward. With your doubts, with your wounds, with your past on your back. You don't need to run. You don't need to impress anyone. You just need to be faithful to yourself and take the next step, because that step, no matter how small it seems, could be the beginning of profound transformation. The Stoics weren't looking for easy roads. They were looking for roads with meaning. And you're already on one. You're listening. You're reflecting. You're feeling. Now all that's missing is a gesture, an action, a movement. However small, it could change everything. Don't wait any longer. The perfect moment doesn't exist. Total clarity never comes. Life is happening now, and you are ready to move forward. 10th Stoic lesson. Your life is now, not when everything is clear. How many times have you said, once I figure out what I want, I'll begin? How many times have you put your dreams, decisions, or changes on hold, waiting for complete clarity? When I get through this crisis, when I have an answer, when I feel better. But that when never comes. Because clarity, like the horizon, always recedes as you move forward. And in the meantime, life slips through your fingers. The days keep passing, even if you don't know where you're headed. The existential crisis that brought you to a halt is still there, but so is the time you'll never get back. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor amidst plagues, wars, and betrayals, wrote with brutal wisdom, "Do not waste the remainder of your life in thoughts about others or about the future." He understood what you can begin to understand now. Life is not something to wait for. Life is something to live, even and especially when you understand nothing at all. Many people see their existential crisis as a mandatory pause, a tunnel with no exit, a waiting room until everything makes sense again. But that mindset condemns you to inaction, to passivity, to the fantasy that someday everything will align, and then, only then, you'll be able to be yourself, to move forward, to decide, to live. But no, it won't happen that way. What the Stoics teach us is that you don't need to understand life in order to live it fully. You don't need to overcome the crisis to act with purpose. You don't need to have all the puzzle pieces in place before taking a step. All you need is to be present. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." So if what's happening to you right now is confusion, doubt, emptiness, or sadness, don't avoid it. Don't deny it. Don't wait for it to pass. Live it. Live it with courage, with awareness, with the serenity of someone who knows they don't need to have it all figured out in order to begin walking. There is beauty in imperfection. There is power in acting even with a broken heart. And there is wisdom in learning to find peace in the middle of chaos. An existential crisis is not a punishment. It is an awakening. It's the moment when life shakes you and says, you can no longer live on autopilot. You can no longer live for others. You can no longer postpone your truth. And you can either listen or ignore it. You can seize it or numb it with empty distractions. The choice is always yours. Seneca said, "Life is long if you know how to use it." But how do you make use of a life that feels like it has no meaning? You start by letting go of the waiting. Let go of waiting to feel secure. Let go of waiting for others to validate you. Let go of waiting for fear to disappear. Let go of waiting for everything to be clear, and simply decide to live today, now, with what you have. Maybe your purpose isn't clear, but you can choose to be kind today. Maybe you don't know what career to pursue, but you can read, reflect, walk, observe life. Maybe you don't know if that relationship has a future, but you can speak with honesty today. Maybe you don't know what's next, but you can breathe, give thanks, sit in silence, and feel what is. Life doesn't begin when you have all the answers. Life begins when you stop demanding them from yourself. The Stoics knew that the present is the only thing that's real, the only thing you can touch, feel, transform. The past no longer exists. The future isn't born yet, but you are here, and that is enough. If you learn to inhabit the present, even amid the chaos, you'll discover something incredible. That your peace does not come from everything making sense. It comes from your choice to live with meaning, even when everything feels meaningless. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. You no longer need to find the path to move. You don't need a glorious goal to get up in the morning. You just need presence. Presence to do your best with what you have. Presence to stop fleeing from your emptiness and start embracing it. Presence to stop waiting and start being. Don't underestimate the power of a single day lived with awareness. A day when you allow yourself to be with yourself without demands. A day when you choose not to have all the answers, but instead choose to have a firm, compassionate, and brave attitude. One day like that can mark the beginning of an entirely different life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The perfection of character is to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense." And that is possible for you, even in crisis, even without direction, even in fear. Because what matters is not whether you understand everything. What matters is whether you're willing to live with integrity and truth, even when you understand nothing. So today, repeat it like a mantra. My life does not begin when everything is clear. My life is now, here, and I deserve to live it with presence. That is the final teaching, and the true beginning of your transformation. Maybe you didn't know it when you pressed play on this session, but this wasn't just another video. It was an encounter with yourself, a silent call, a whisper from within saying, pause, look at your life. Finally, listen to yourself. Because not everyone who feels they've lost their way actually admits it. Many disguise it with borrowed goals, constant distractions and forced smiles. But not you. You chose to look inward, and that alone is an act of courage. There's a truth few dare to speak. Adulthood is filled with moments of feeling lost, with degrees hanging on the wall, a shared bed, children, jobs, accomplishments or failures. And still, that persistent sense of emptiness. As if something is slipping away, as if you're alive but not fully present. And that's where Stoicism becomes more necessary than ever, because this philosophy doesn't demand that you stop feeling. It doesn't impose dogma or punish you for doubting. It walks beside you, it looks you in the eye, and it reminds you with firmness and tenderness that you can bear more than you think, and even transform your darkest moments into wisdom. Today we won't repeat the 10 lessons we've shared. It wouldn't be fair to summarize what can only be truly grasped with the soul. But I do want to leave you with something deeper, a seed of calm, a seed of meaning, a seed of community. Because this path you've started, you don't have to walk it alone. Yes, it's true. The search for direction is personal. No one can do it for you. But that doesn't mean you have to go through it in isolation, in silence, in emotional solitude. Here, in this community, there are thousands of people like you, who have fallen and risen again, who have felt lost and found in ancient philosophy a compass for the present. We don't come here to pretend everything's okay. We come to remember that even when everything falls apart outside, you can still build a refuge within, a place where judgment doesn't exist, where masks fall away, where truth is spoken, where emotions aren't repressed, they're transformed. And if you've made it this far, to the very last word, it means that something you heard stirred something deep inside you. A memory, a wound, a hope. Don't ignore it. Don't minimize it. Life doesn't offer these encounters by accident. Ask yourself sincerely, what did I learn about myself today that I didn't know before? What thought will stay with me as this video ends? What decision, no matter how small, can I make today to live with more presence? Maybe you don't have all the answers, but if you've gained even one powerful question, then this space has already fulfilled its purpose. And if you feel this session was more than just content, if it was a mirror, a comfort, a compass, I invite you to subscribe. Not for numbers, not for algorithms, but because every new member strengthens this community of awakened souls who have chosen not to live on autopilot. Here, you'll find sessions to strengthen your mind, words for when you're running low on strength, necessary silences, and above all, unwavering reminders that you're not broken. You're simply rebuilding with more awareness. Subscribing is more than a click. It's a declaration of intent. It's saying, I don't want to survive. I want to live with purpose. It's committing to return here whenever you need it. It's allowing us to accompany you from the Stoic path as you discover that your true direction isn't out there, but in your capacity to look inward with honesty. And if at some point you feel lost again, come back. We'll be here. You will always have a place here, a word, a guide, a refuge, because getting lost is also part of the path, and sometimes only by getting lost can we finally find ourselves. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having the courage to feel. Thank you for choosing this space as part of your awakening. Now breathe deeply and take one more step toward yourself, toward calm, toward the direction that was always within you. We'll see you in the next Stoic session. And if this message struck a chord, I invite you to write your personal declaration in the comments. Even if I get lost, I will never stop searching for myself. Let that be your anchor, and the reminder that you're closer to yourself than you imagine. Remember, every decision shapes your character. In the pinned comment, you'll find 2 paths, and each one exists for a reason. There are decisions that seem small, but change everything. If something inside you shifted while listening to this, don't let it pass. Subscribing isn't just a click, it's a decision. The decision to no longer live asleep. The decision to walk with awareness, with courage, with purpose. And if you choose to support this space as a member, you're not giving, you're planting. Thanks to you, this flame doesn't go out. Your presence allows us to keep sharing wisdom in a noisy world, building a community of awakened, grounded, and free souls. We'll meet again at Stoicism for Winners, where we'll continue exploring the richness of ancient wisdom applied to modern life. Until then, remember, you are the master of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible,